When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. I am so excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. Let me tell you, in a society where oftentimes we see people are mean, rude, they diss other people, they're disrespectful, they have no regard for serving and helping others. Today, our conversation is going to lend us to the opportunity to really lay out what it looks like to have this heart of service. You guys know what that means, whether you're volunteering, spending time, working with other people, giving unto others yourself, those things that you would like to receive. You see, sometimes we forget what it looks like to be able to serve others with a glad and sincere heart, or sometimes just to sit back and make a level of sacrifice in order to be able to let someone else have a good day. You know, it's very easy for us to be mean. It's very easy to be negative because it doesn't require any work. So however you get up in the morning, however you're feeling, sometimes we have the tendency to bring that into our day. In our discussion today, we're going to talk about what it looks like to teach service to others. It's a part of being able to live a balanced life. It's about being able to look beyond yourself and to find this way in which we can engage with other people that allows them to feel as if they are valued, that they are needed, and that they are loved. I'm excited to invite our guests in today, Dr. Tierney, Charlotte Avery, Stacey Owens, and Pastor JT, as we really do open up this Pandora's box and talk about, believe it or not, a generation that is missing what it means to live a life of servitude. Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
I am so glad to see you guys. Let me tell you, there are so many ways that our lives can get off center. And oftentimes it deals with, I'll start with me. So sometimes my day, even though I wake up balanced and I feel like I'm in a really great space, if I go to the mall or to the store or the car wash or I'm running around doing errands, I always bump into someone who is unkind, someone who is in a pissy mood, someone who just, for whatever it is, got up on the wrong side of the bed and decided to bring that angst and anxiety and all of those things with them into their own space. And then it filters over into my space. One of the questions that I'm curious about today is, how do you all deal with bumping into people who spill over their ish into your space? I know it's loaded. Going for it, y'all.
Wow.
Stacey, let's start with you. I mean, how do you deal with that when people just kind of dump into your space when you're like in this great space of your own?
I don't deal with it because that's them. I mean, I think I've come to a place in my life where I'm learning that, I'm going to let you carry your own water. That's your issue. I don't know what happened and I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to respect the fact that I'm going to give you grace and say, perhaps they're just having a bad morning. I'm not going to take it personal. I'm doing really good about learning not to take stuff personal, because I think if your emotions spill over to me, it can only affect me if I allow it to, if I start taking it personal and thinking that it's about me. So I have gotten to this space where I just have learned, I'm going to let you keep that, but I'm going to lead with love. So I'll check in on you. I may even ask you, are you okay? How you doing today? Is anything going on you want to talk about? But other than that, I'm not going to let you make my day bad because your day is bad. No, I just don't.
I really like that example that you used. I remember there was a commercial out some time back where the person would close the door on an individual, or somebody would drop something and no one would pick it up. They let their basket roll into the street and no one did anything. And throughout the entire day, that negativity just continued to go on because we were paying negativity forward. Hey, Charlotte Avery, how are you dealing with when people sort of step into your space with the things that are bothering them?
Well, I try to not take things personal, especially when I absolutely know it has nothing to do with me, right? And I try to recognize, that everybody has their, like Stacy said, everybody has their own issues and things of that nature. But I don't try to make somebody else's issues about me, especially when I know I didn't do anything to you. So, I try to treat people with kindness, no matter what their behavior is or whatever, because one thing that I know is that sometimes, when people are being negative, it's really sometimes coming from a place of, it could be coming from a place of anxiety. It could be coming from a place of inadequacy. It could be coming from a place where, a kid or a spouse or somebody, really upset them or whatever. And, and so sometimes, when I see people who are bent out of shape because I am a hugger, I will always say, do you need a hug? Because, sometimes, I believe in hugging it out. I saw this study that said if you hug somebody for 20 seconds or longer, then it brings their heart rate down and, positive endorphins flow. Now, I know that we've been out of physical contact with things like, with people and each other or whatever. But, I don't reach for a hug. I always ask, can I give you a hug? And sometimes, it's just something like that, because you're thinking about, what, this person is thinking about me and they really want to hug me. And so sometimes that just starts to diffuse a situation. So I just try to remember, what, their issue is not about me. And I just try to give them grace and move on.
Giving grace and moving on is definitely a sign of maturity. And oftentimes people don't possess that skill. Pastor JT, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dr. Jacquie. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So are you hugging it out? Are you duking it out? How do you live with people who dump in your space?
Wow. Well, I'm definitely not hugging it out. Monkeypox are here in these streets, so I'm trying to be as careful as I can. And I'm not duking it out. One thing that I will say to Charlotte's point is, especially in my capacity of service, I have to always be even kiltered. I have to always be level headed, because out here in these streets, I think everybody is walking with their cell phones on record. It always amazes me how it's always somebody that catches a video of something. And so, I've worked too hard to get to where I am right now. For one moment, somebody see Pastor Jay, being reminiscent of old school Mike Tyson. So I always, allow grace to be extended, because piggybacking off of what Charlotte said and what I have learned, especially in my service role in teaching at our local police department, a course that talks about building trust after trauma. There are a lot of people that we encounter that are in the midst of one of the worst days of their lives. And so sometimes we could take it personal and, start to say, well, I didn't do that, or I wouldn't do that to somebody, how dare them, or how dare. And we really don't know what that morning could have been like. They could have just gotten a telephone call and received some news that they really haven't had an opportunity to process. And you are the first person that they engage. So I think that word grace has to be extended, especially for us who live and float in this service space. Now, I will say that is for that one-off chance encounter. But now if I could take it a step further, because some of our viewers are on right now and you don't have control of your bowl of Cheerios. You feel the need to be everything for everybody. And then when somebody has a bad day, you feel that it's your responsibility to try to shift them and make them okay. And you have found yourself affected after you have tried to change them. And so if you find yourself in a habitual mode with somebody that is always in a sour disposition, that's who they are. So now, and sometimes you have to extend grace. And then there are some times that you have to identify where it's time for me to exit stage right.
Exiting stage right. Hey, Dr. Tierney.
Hey.
What say ye?
So I echo what everyone else, my esteemed colleagues, have said. The only thing that I would add is that when we encounter, situations where someone else's stuff has kind of spilled over, into our plate, the thing that I try to make sure that I don't do is to respond with apathy. Sometimes it's not that we're duking it out or that we're doing this. Sometimes it's just okay. That can just make a person feel small and unseen. And so I try to make sure that absolutely that I'm not getting into the sandbox with them with the negativity, but also that I'm not just being apathetic where I'm just looking right through them and I don't see them, taking that moment to make myself available, even if something that they said was really left field. I give up my right to be right so that I could extend love, grace, to that person. So sometimes it really comes down to offense. Am I in that moment going to be offended and then become apathetic and not see that person, not see maybe what God is calling me to do or to be in that person's life at that moment, and that's not always, like my brother, Pastor JC just said, not every need has my name on it, but if I make sure that I'm being open and receptive to whatever the Holy Spirit is saying in that moment, then it lets me know what I'm supposed to do in that moment and not just shut it down and be like, okay, whatever, and just walk off. So making sure that we're not being apathetic to one another is also key.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing, because I believe it really does set the tone for how we engage in helping people keep balance when we're trying to teach this attitude related to service. As you can tell, all of our guests today have their own view and perspective, but they come from a place of grace, a place of love, a place of being able to really identify how you work with other people, even in the midst of what people don't understand needs to be done. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about the golden rule. Most of you have heard this one before. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. When we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. When we talk about what it means to have a heart of service and being able to lend aid to other people, we've all been taught in some way, shape, form, or fashion the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, as we're thinking about these things, some of you may have even heard the phrase that was coined by Confucius: whatever you do not wish to yourself, extend not to others. And then Epicurus also said, neither to harm nor be harmed. So each and every day, as we think about how we're leading and guiding and stepping out into the world, there are some things that really do need to be discussed, because there's a generation of people and we've all run into them. So, in this time and space where we're discovering and learning how to live a balanced life, and we're out here getting back into the world, there's a way in which we should move and come into it. I want to talk to our guest just for a second about what does it look like to have an attitude of service? When do you know is the right time to serve other people, to do for another person without getting yourself caught up and trapped? It's often difficult and hard to do. Hey, Charlotte Avery. I want to talk to Charlotte for just a few moments, because with 7 little people and how this looks for you in your life, how are you guiding not just yourself and your husband and your children, but the world in which they live? How are you teaching them the golden rule and to be in that space of having a servant's heart?
Well, one of the lessons that we've always taught our children is you reap what you sow. And so, and they know it, and they also know that there are penalties and rewards for the decisions and the choices that you make. That also extends into how you treat other people, and how you give to other people. We have always taught our children what it means to be givers. So talking about being safe in service and things of that nature, one of my children is, she is an empath. She's an empathic person, like to the bone. Like, she feels everything. She feels everybody's emotions and things of that nature. And sometimes she can get so caught up in other people's stuff that she forgets how to protect herself. And so, we've had to teach her, listen, you can't save everybody. It's fine to be a listening ear, but some people, you have to know the difference in people who are dumping and who are takers versus people who are reciprocal givers. Mm-hmm. And so, that's hard to teach children sometimes, until their feelings get really hurt, right? And so, for us though, we try to model, we have always tried to model what serving other people looks like. So for our children, it's not just, the fact of what we're teaching them to do, because, as a family, we do community service projects together, whether it's packing bags for the homeless, whether it's boxing toys for kids in other countries during Christmas time or whatever. Those are things that we do together. But when our children weren't old enough to do those things, they saw what my husband and I were doing, as far as helping other people, whether it was leaving more than enough money for a tip, or seeing somebody out on the street who, was asking for, can you put gas in my car? Can you give me money for gas if we're at the gas station? Well, in being wise, we're like, okay, well, we can't give you money for gas, but we don't mind helping put gas in your car. And so, these are things that our children have seen over the years, from the time that they were born. And so for my kids, our children, they are natural givers. Some of them are a little bit more tight with it every now and then, but at the same time, they have a heart to love people and to serve people and to give to people. But one reason why I believe they have that heart is because we, as their parents, have modeled it from the time from the time they were born. And so I believe that as adults, when we're talking about this particular generation and their selfishness and entitlement and things like that, I tell my children, listen, you're not entitled to anything except breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a roof over your head and clothes on your back. Anything else that you get is extra, and you're entitled to respect, right? And so, I just think that as adults, if we're not modeling what it means to give and serve, then our children are not going to model, or they're not even going to show what it is to give and serve. They're not going to want to be givers, because we are raising a generation of entitled, manipulative takers. And I think in order for us not to do that, we have to model it. And we can't just start modeling it when they're 10 and when they're 15 and they're getting ready to go out of our house. We have to show them what it is to model that when they're 2, when they're 3, when they're 4, and let that carry and be with them, throughout the years of their lives.
throughout the years of their lives. I know that there's studies that talk about this age group that falls into this category, and it's literally Gen Z and millennials. And I recall, in the early 2000s when we were looking at this babies raising babies and babies having babies generation, and there was so much learning that didn't take place because you had 13, 14, and 15-year-olds having children who also didn't have the skill set in order to raise them. And so I wonder sometimes if this gap that we had in this season of time where children were raising children, that we missed out on being able to teach them how to serve because they were so busy, growing up too fast. Pastor JT, you talk about this a lot, and, looking at these generations where we have this gap in serving. How do you see that playing out? And what are some words of, wisdom that you can provide for us or tips related to helping people rediscover having a heart of servitude?
That's a great question, Dr. Jacquie. One of the things that I will say, just kind of piggybacking off of what Charlotte said, just want to pull on one point she said about being the model. Mm. We are our children's first role models. There was a point that Charles Barkley, of all people, said that really got him in a lot of hot water, but I agree with him 110%. He said that, I'm not your child's role model. And I think that this was, people talking about the way he was acting and the way that he was perceived in some of the situations that he was in his NBA career. And he said, this is my job. I get paid to play basketball. I'm not paid to be a role model. He said that the people in the house are supposed to be the role models. And it really resonated with me because I honestly believe that a lot of people look outside of the home for the training, for the discipline, for the role model that should be in the house. But now going back to your point about this generation, and I'm always pointing back to this generation because the shift happened like around the late 70s going into the 80s, and so much happened during that time. One of the groups that benefited well from the Civil Rights Act were women. Women were able now to be acclimated in society. They were able to go after jobs that once were relegated just for men, and specifically men of other ethnic backgrounds. And so then when you start seeing the mother outside of the house, and then we start to see that the fathers were not in the home, many of the fathers kind of got caught up in that, crack epidemic. Either they were on drugs or they were selling drugs. And either way, we were losing so many of our men through mass incarceration. And then now the mother has the responsibility of having to try to be the provider of the home, that nurturer that is in the home, that was in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, that made the home, was the homemaker. That picture of service was void. So now all I see is mama getting up in the morning, going to work, maybe dropping me off at school, then coming back home at night. And then I really didn't have any type of time with the person that really was there to nurture me and prepare me and to show me what a life looked like and what service looked like. So now you have these children that were born in the 80s, and this is what they saw. This is what was modeled in front of them. These are the people that you're speaking of, Dr. Jacquie, that in the 80s, in 2000, turned 20. Mm-hmm. So now in 2022, that person that was 20 is now 42. So now this person that is 42, they have a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old that's in our school system now. And interestingly enough, we have parents who are competing with their children to be famous on social media and not spending time investing and modeling in them the way that they should go. Speaking of the way that they should go, scripture says, train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they get old, they will not depart from it. But this is the thing. We always look at that scripture in a positive way, but we can negatively train our children. We're not training them up, we're training them down. Mm. And so now we are in a space in time where we are not living by the golden rule, where we are doing unto others as we would want others to do unto us. We have flipped that golden rule and we've made the golden rule dirty. Now we're talking about matching energy. But I want to let somebody know, in this whole field of matching energy, man, you can't clean dirt with dirt. At some point, there has to be the Michelle Obama persona that when they go low, we go high. When they go low, we're not trying to go to the basement. We're trying to go high and set a standard because our children are watching us. They're watching how we handle situations. They're watching how we talk to people. They're watching how we carry ourselves. They're watching how we respond. And their actions and characteristics, when they get to the school, this is the same student that you have in your home. So I believe that if I could offer a word to anybody, be in front of your child who you want your child to be when they are not in your presence.
So I'm going to let y'all take a pause there and then really catch what Pastor JD said, because I know some of y'all were listening like, is he saying that we should go back to being homemakers, that we should stop working? Should we do things that, I'm telling y'all, Pastor JT was not trying to make y'all feel guilty about working outside of the home, but he does bring a very valid point that we as a society do not have the luxury of running here and there and being all over the place and missing moments to expose our kids to what it means to have a servant attitude and a servant heart, even pointing out opportunities and times for them to be able to serve. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about exposure. How do you get it? What does it look like? And how do you provide opportunities for your children, yourself, your young adult to be engaged, not only at home, at church, and in the community, but also to be service to themselves? When we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
These are the only bins that will accommodate larger overboard.
They put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out until you die. And you eat him, you hoop 10.
Oh my God.
So what?
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. As you can tell, learning and discovering how to have a servant's heart, getting out and helping other people, discovering where and how to volunteer isn't always easy, because there are times when it can take a toll on us, because a lot of us wear our emotions and our feelings on our sleeve, and we feel a certain kind of way when we see people in need. But then there are others are just so cold and so hard and so distant from everything that is happening in their own lives that they can literally just walk by a starving person. They can walk by an individual who doesn't have on shoes. They literally cannot see because of their own situation and circumstance, that they missed an opportunity to step into another's life and render aid. I want to talk to Dr. Tierney as well as Stacey Owens about what it looks like to move in the spaces that we have now, emerging from this pandemic, allowing ourselves to create a culture within our community and the other spaces where we live to really show how to lead from a place of service. Hey, Dr. T and Stacey, how you doing?
Hey, doing well.
Let me tell you, Dr. Tierney, a lot of what you do related to teaching people how to level up really means getting out of their own way and finding opportunity to serve other people. Talk to us a little bit about what it looks like when we say exposure matters. Where do people find time and space to be able to serve when they find themselves living such busy lives?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this is where the conversation of boundaries really comes into play. So when we're talking about where to serve, how to serve, I mean, there's opportunities all around us, from right in our own home, right in our own schools, right in our own families, right in our own neighborhoods, into the different communities and regional and in our global society. So it's not really hard to find the place. But if you haven't done your internal work, if you, as you stated, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off and you're stressed and anxious all the time, then it's going to be hard for you to think about serving someone else when you feel like you're drowning, So this is where that conversation of boundaries comes in. Remember, boundaries are about us, our goals, what we need in order for us to be okay. It's not barriers where we make it about the other person. Now, the reason why boundaries is so important here when we're talking about service, because boundaries is what makes the difference between service and selfishness. Sometimes we can get in a place where it's all about me. It's all about what's going on in my life. It's all about what time I have or don't have, or how much money I have and don't have, and what I ain't nobody got time for that, or, whatever that thing is. That's where we may slip into selfishness, where we're not serving anybody but our own self-interest. But when we're talking about service and really serving others, this is where, okay, if I have my boundary set, I know what it is that I need. I know, what my time allotments are. I know what my financial responsibilities and priorities are. Then we can live in that margin. We have extra room in our lives to where we can be of service, to others. Boundaries also keep us from, again, as Pastor GT mentioned, constantly running to everybody else's aid. To where we're not taking care of ourselves. So then we become the chicken with our head cut off, because we're taking care of everybody else's needs and we're not tending to our own needs. So when you have really set your boundaries in place, when you have worked with your coach and your therapist to work through your things, then that makes it easier for you to see the abundance of places to serve that are all around you. And again, it doesn't have to be something hard. Yes, it can be with your church. It can be with your social organization. It can be with a local community organization or with your school, but it can also be right in your own home. It can be as big as doing a charitable drive, or you join several organizations together, but it can also be just as small as you being in the grocery store and seeing someone, struggling and saying, hey, how are you doing, today? So sometimes we make it so big that we end up doing nothing because we feel like we can't make a dent in all of the need that's out there. But it's really very, very simple. It's very, very small. And the opportunities are all around us if we would just do our internal work, take care of the things that we need to, so then we can see all of the need that is around us.
It is being able to see, you bring up a very valid point related to that. I recall being in a grocery store not too long ago, and there was a lady, I'm 5'5", so she may have been like 5 feet tall. And she was just looking at various things. And I, the courtesy of it all, asking, are you trying to reach something? Are you looking for something, specific? And she said, I was waiting for someone who worked here, to come by so they could reach something on a top shelf. I had to stretch my arm a little bit, but I reached and got it for her. And I think that sometimes, like you said, it is the simple things. It's being aware of what another may need and not being so busy in your own thing that you miss moments to offer aid to another person. Now, Stacey, you work with children and adults, and in your space, how are children learning to be of service to others?
So I think for children, when we come into this world, we come in as takers. Your first few years of life is all about me. So with the kids, and Pastor JT told you, when the mothers are out, the nurturer is gone. So you have in children those gaps of those warm demeanors, just knowing and understanding what kindness and what love and what all that looks like and feels like. So I think it's important first, when it comes to the children, it's just teaching them how to have that servant mentality. Starts with just the simple understanding that it just means to do good to other people. So if we can break it down to that simplicity of every day you wake up, you get the opportunity to just find something that you can do good for someone else and you can serve daily. Kindness is that foundation for servitude. So with kids, we have to teach them just how to be kind to themselves and then how to be kind to others. And then that starts teaching them how to see and use empathy. So if we can fill in those gaps that were missing from our parent or our mother or the nurturer not being in the home, that just starts with that internal work that Dr. Tierney was talking about. Start that with kids first. And then they will be able to reach out and look and care about someone else in the world beyond themselves.
I want to invite Charlotte Avery into this conversation because I want to expand on something that the three of you are talking about. You mentioned the term warm demeanors. And then sometimes our children are in this space of being so loving and so caring that their heart literally breaks. As women who work with young people, how do you help a child? I know the term that used was boundaries, but I want to go just a little bit deeper when it comes to children. How do you help them separate their feelings so that they're not overly impacted? Because I know at young ages, they don't have the coping skills that are necessary in order to define, if you will, the thing that really bothers them and the words to use. So Charlotte Avery, when you see your kids working in this space and you see your kids bringing issues home to you about another child, how are you talking to them about separating their feelings from the facts of a person's situation?
Mm-hmm. Just in what you just said, the feelings versus the facts. Because sometimes a lot of, especially when you're dealing with young people and really more so, I have 4 girls and 3 boys, and I see this more in my girls than I do with my boys. But, girls and, we can get really caught up in our feelings, our emotions or whatever. And so I always have to ask my children when they're dealing with certain things, I'm like, okay, is what you're feeling really true? Is it really a true feeling? And how did we get there? How did we get from this situation? I want to know the facts of the situation so that I can deal with the feelings of the situation. Because sometimes, as parents, when our kids come to us with a lot of feeling and emotion or whatever, and, you'll be like, what? You said what? You did what to my kid or whatever? But it's really getting all of the information. Not that we don't believe our children, because we do, but it's really going back and saying, okay, I can't just see this from the eyes of just, I have to feel it from the heart of a 5-year-old, but I also have to go and get the details from all the people who were involved to see, are these feelings actually valid? Now, everybody's going to say, well, everybody's feelings are valid. Yes, they are. Everybody's feelings are valid. And I will never say that they're not. But sometimes when we don't have the facts, we can't even help to navigate the feelings. And so to me, I am a fact person. I want to know the facts so that I can help navigate the feelings of a situation, because the reality of it is that there are times that our children do come home very brokenhearted, whether it's something that happened to them or whether it's something that happened to somebody that they know. And I have some kids that are very justice centered. And so, they feel like if somebody was done wrong, then they want to do something about it. But I'm like, you got to, slow your roll. And I have to model, and I've modeled this for my children, because my children will come home, they'll tell me something, and before I jump and go to school, I'm getting all of the information in writing and all kinds of other things. And so I think it's, it goes back to the modeling, but it also goes back to really getting to the facts of the situation and also dealing with the situation to see, are these feelings really valid? Are they not valid, but are they true? Is what you're feeling, and here's the other thing, are these feelings really about you? Because sometimes, your peers and other people will use you as a dumping ground. And 1 minute you were all up high, and now somebody's told you a situation and now you're all down low. And so, like Dr. Tierney said, it's teaching your children boundaries, about their emotions and other people and all the different things. And so, I just try to be careful when it comes to the facts and the feelings, because they're not always the same.
Facts and feelings. When we come back after the break, I want to talk about my 5 C's to serving and how it relates to living a balanced life. So I want you to write these down real quick. Communication, courtesy, common sense, commitment, and compassion. Communication, courtesy, common sense, commitment, and compassion. When we're back after the break, I'm going to talk to our guests about which of these 5 words matters most to them and why. You see, each of us has our own way and space in which we deal with the world and how we want the world to deal with us. When we're back after the break.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can see, learning how to serve isn't easy. Teaching people how to serve has work involved. And so as we're engaging in what it looks like to come through this pandemic, and we're trying to decide how to be of service and picking certain causes where we want to lend our aid, it allows us to find the space that really works for us. But in order to do so, as I already stated, there are 5 ways that you have to discover as an individual how you want the world to engage with you and how you want to engage with the world. And they are communication, courtesy, commitment, common sense, and compassion. Welcome back, everybody. In this last block, all of us have a way of explaining why we do what we do or feeling the way in which we feel. And I think that these 5 hard C's are sometimes some ways in which we can really figure out not only how to teach people how to serve, but for ourselves to really allow ourselves to stay in our serving lane, because oftentimes we have a tendency to run ahead of all the things that we know make sense and then just kind of step out there, and then we find ourselves caught up or trapped. I want to start with Pastor JT. Pastor JT, which of these hard C's, is your C, and how does it relate to helping teach others how to serve and how you serve?
I think all of them, but I'll take one because I want to leave some for my sisters. But mine is communication. And my brother in the 80s, he told me communication rules the nation. Now, he was training his little brother on something totally different. But I have kind of remixed it to now communication kills frustration. A lot of people are frustrated because we have uncommunicated expectations. And so we just expect people to do what we would do. And then it kind of teeters on your other C, common sense. Because as we know now in 2022, we have had 2 years, 2.5 years worth of time with ourselves and with other people to see that common sense just ain't common. You wouldn't think that you would have to fight nobody to put a mask on or wash their hands or actually cover their mouth when they sneeze. You would think that's common sense, but it's not. And there are so many people that operate in a space where we believe that everybody should look at the world through our lenses. So I think that that first C that I mentioned, communication, being upfront, being truthful, being honest, being vulnerable, and really communicating, I believe that that opens up an opportunity for service as well as for you to be served. Because communication, if you all hear me, communication is not just talking. Communication also involves listening.
Absolutely. Charlotte Avery.
First of all, you're dropping these 5 C's on us, and I'm struggling because all of them are so very, very, very important. I will piggyback off of what Pastor JT said, though. When I wrote the 40-day tone of voice tone down, it was because I had a communication deficit. I literally had a communication problem. And so, but the thing is that it wasn't just communication. It was sometimes my level of compassion or the lack thereof. And so I do believe that, how we communicate and when we communicate also, pours into how we treat people with compassion, because compassion is so important. Being empathetic is so important and making people feel like they matter. But if your communication is off and from the jump, then how do you even begin to be compassionate towards somebody? And then they're just going to tune you out and they don't want to hear you or feel anything that you had to say because you came at them all wrong in the first place. So for me, the biggest 2 out of all of those, even though I was only supposed to pick one, is communication and compassion, because it just really, really matters. Because I believe that through my communication with you and how I'm dealing with you is also going to show my level of compassion.
Compassion matters. I thank you for sharing that, because oftentimes we do, as Stacey said earlier, we live in this me generation. And then there are times where we feel like I'm going to say this, it's okay to be selfish before you learn how to become selfless. It's just a process, that we all go through. Stacey Owens, tell us about your C's.
Yeah, like the other said, you need a little bit of all 5, but I think if I had to make a hard selection, I'm going to go with commitment, because I was fortunate to serve under the guidance of great mentors and great leaders, bosses. And I didn't have a problem with sitting at their feet and serving them and learning the processes that I needed to learn in order to be successful in what I do. But from that, when you become a person who serves people on a daily basis, you can become overwhelmed because people know that you're giving all the time. So they sort of look to you to be that person that's always there to give them advice or give them something, right? So I've learned that I need to have that commitment and learn how to commit to the things that I can commit to. And if I can't commit to it and give it my all, then I have to learn how to say no. And so that's where I have to use my common sense a little bit, because you got to have a discernment when you are a servant so that you can discern when people are now trying to take advantage of your giving heart.
Taking advantage of your giving heart. I think that may be one of the reasons why so many people don't serve, because, they think or mistake our kindness for weakness. And, that's a whole nother conversation, for another day. And I get it. A lot of you are out there saying, I tried to serve. I wanted to lend myself to a cause, but I was really good at what I did. And people started taking advantage of me, and I felt abused, and my gift was mistreated. And, those are all valid feelings. And it does lead to burnout, because we keep trying over and over and over again, for people to see us for who we are and what we bring to the table without taking advantage of us. And our kids see our parents being abused, and they see individuals taking advantage because they're always running to someone else's aid, but they're never getting anything in return. And our kids watch us as adults suffer at the hands of doing good. And so I get why young people are saying, I'm out. I don't want to do it. But there's so much value and reward in being able to give to other people. Dr. Tierney, what say ye? What are your C's?
Ma'am, you just said it. I mean, literally, you just said exactly where I was going to go with it. That my C was the common sense, because we're in this space where people don't see the value in serving for all the reasons that you literally just said. And so I kind of landed, of course, the compassion piece, since we were picking two, since my other esteemed colleagues picked two, I'm going to pick my two. Compassion, of course, because it could be me. I could be the one that needs help. I could be the one that's needing that helping hand, or someone just to check in on me, or that advice, or that lift up, to help me get to my next level. So of course that compassion piece, but the common sense piece, absolutely. And part of what I wanted to highlight was, okay, why serve? So if you find yourself in that place where it's like, okay, Dr. T, you got to make this make sense, because I've tried it before. It doesn't, it hasn't worked. I was abused. This is where that common sense comes in, because when we serve, I mean, if you find yourself in a woe is me, place, the quickest way to get out of that woe is me place, serve. If you want your business to thrive, last week we talked all about entrepreneurship, and, you probably heard me say that if you want a business, then that means you want to be a servant. They call the different products and the things that we offer services for a reason. It's called customer service for a reason, so if you want your business to thrive and the only thing you're focused on is the bottom line, how much money you're going to make trying to grab the bag, then your business isn't going to thrive. But if you want your business to thrive, then focus in on serving your customers, with excellence. If you want to see the world change, serve, pretty much all of the things that we come in contact with that burns our toast and frustrates us, service can be an answer to most of those things. So that's why I picked the common sense, because sometimes we're making it a little harder than what it needs to be. And it just comes right on back to that common sense piece.
Last week when we closed, I asked each one of you to say something that we wanted people to bring. And I'm going to ask you that again today, because I thought it was very enlightening. So if you could pick one word that people could bring to their service, tell me what that would be. Go, Charlotte Avery.
Definitely compassion. Bring compassion with you, because there are so many people who are in need, and everybody doesn't have it like you have it, so, bring compassion and be willing to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Bring compassion.
Stacey.
Bring joy. If you're going to help someone, joy is already within us, and we have the control over it. So shine that light into others. And if you don't already have that joy, then think about the reward that you want to get from serving, and make sure it's an internal reward and not something external, because you won't survive if you're just dependent upon the external rewards.
That's right.
Pastor JT.
I'd say bring grace, because you never know when you may be on the other side and need the service that you are attempting to give to somebody given to you. So bring grace.
And Dr. Tierney.
Humility. To whom much is given, much is required. Jesus came and served, and ain't none of us better than Jesus. So humility.
There you have it. When we come back after the break, I'll give mine in our reflection when we return.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can see, learning, discovering, displaying how to live a balanced life is not easy. But one of the things that we can do in that process is using our servant's heart. Having a servant's heart is something that is learned. We definitely can teach it to our children. We ourselves can learn it. I will say that the one thing that I would say to bring is courtesy. Let me tell you, courtesy is really the lowest hanging fruit that you can pick from the servanthood tree. Being kind, being nice, offering a hand, opening a door, pulling out a chair, reaching for the grocery bag, closing your door when you see other people trying to get in their car if they're parked next to you. There are so many ways in which we can show courtesy to others. It's a mindset. It's an attitude. It's something that lives inside of you. All you have to do is pull it out. So as we're thinking about training up this next generation as we move through this pandemic, some of the things that we should be able to see is young people saying, please, thank you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. The days of and what and yelling out should be a thing of the past. Let us get back to that place where we are teaching those things that are family values, that are community values, that which relates to how we become a whole and wholesome society. You see, developing a servant heart and a servant attitude literally begins with the people that are around you. You've heard our guest today talk about having mentors around you, utilizing a coach, having individuals in your space that will teach you, show you, nurture you, and push you out into avenues that give you the ability to showcase the skills of having a servant heart. I hope that something that we have said today has allowed you to feel as if you can get back at it again. I know some of you guys just kind of stopped out altogether because before the pandemic, people were abusing and using your gifts to their own advantage. I often say that things can change when we begin to wake up and see how others are benefiting from our blindness. So today, open your eyes, allow yourself to get back in the game and live with a servant's heart and attitude that you may bring sunshine to others. Thank you all for watching today. Have a great day now. Bye.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.